Welcome to Licensing, LifeCycle, and Simplification Services podcast. I'd like to introduce Jam Khan, our SafeNet's Senior Director of Professional Services and our presenter for today. My name is Marcy Clark, and I'll be your moderator for this session. In today's webcast, Jam will focus on our professional services core competencies and how they align to the areas of focus that are most important to you in the areas of licensing, LifeCycle. By the way, this is one of my favorite webcasts to host because in addition to Jam's discussion about SafeNet's unique approach, it also involves customer case study implementations. During today's webcast, we'll be tweeting from SafeNet Sentinel using the Twitter hashtag AskSafeNet. In addition, please note the links on our online communities on the screen. You'll be able to submit questions at any time during the session by using your question box on the screen. We'll take questions and address all of them at the end during the question and answer session. Now, without further delay, I would like to hand the session over to Jam so that you can get us started. Jam?
Thank you, Marcy. So today's session is really focused on the business of software licensing and the ways to best enable this business. As most of you are probably aware, there's a number of technical solutions available, ranging from third-party to homegrown and quite often combinations of the two. But for those of you that have experienced using technology to help manage your software licensing, you're quite likely aware that many of these challenges go well beyond technology. You hear phrases like customer impact, lack of automation, reconciliation and integration with back-office systems thrown around. All of these have implications on how software is priced and packaged and delivered. That ultimately is the end goal towards what our customers or anybody who's thinking about software licensing is after. It all centers around improved software monetization, streamlining processes. The focus may be on one segment prioritized over the other, but ultimately it's all about improving the business of software, improving the business of software licensing. As you'll see through the course of today's session, our service offerings are aimed at ensuring that technology fits the business needs and not the opposite approach, which quite often ends up being the case. So further to the point of distinguishing between the two, we often list out what we see commonly as the steps that people take in terms of putting together a project plan and where the business integration of this fits. From an overall corporate licensing strategy, depending on the size and scope of the initiative, this is sometimes limited to a product family, a business unit. It can be a global initiative, a regional initiative. But ultimately, it comes down to marrying a licensing strategy with some general licensing philosophies and policies, figuring out what license models need to be developed, nailing down the requirements, identifying the sort of specific use cases, what's currently being implemented, what needs to change. In some cases, it's start from scratch. In some cases, it's improve what's already there. In some cases, it's replace what isn't working. Some of that then funnels down to the decision of build versus buy. In the case of buy, there's the vendor selection process. There's detailed architecture discussions. There's talks about what the ultimate customer experience will be. But as you can see, the business process part of this has a far greater impact on the overall project than simply the technology in isolation. Unfortunately, a number of areas related to business process often get ignored. And that's not for any sort of good reason, but generally they suffer from a lack of ownership. While all software companies understand technologies and thereby can sort of grasp the concepts around getting licensed technology integrated rather quickly, the operational ownership generally gets spread across multiple departments, and as a result, often ends up getting unattended. With an initiative like this, it does cut across various departments, from engineering to operations to IT, technical support, and beyond. And as a result, there's parts of it that everybody owns, but getting an overall owner for something that manages the entire business process around this is sometimes a challenge for organizations. And as a result, software companies that know software well focus on the pieces that they understand pretty well, which is get this technology integrated. The rest of the stuff will sort itself out. obviously keeping a technology-first sort of approach comes with its share of challenges. But that's not to say that the technology integration needs to be undermined or isn't an important part of this. What we do here at SafeNet is really taking a holistic approach to this problem by focusing first on the licensing strategy and all the various organizational touch points in order to create a blueprint for a successful deployment. There'll be much more on this in the actual examples we'll show later on in this session. But even though you'll hear the term cradle to grave thrown around quite a bit in this business, in the case of licensing, it really does have implications. This isn't a set and forget sort of business. It isn't a technology you just plug in one time and it sort of just works. It really has implications throughout the life cycle of software. Even from concept to delivery, it's just part of the puzzle. There's then the ongoing management, there's future delivery, upgrades, renewals. Just about every aspect of the software business is affected by a licensing initiative. Our experience has shown that taking a top-down approach results in an improved customer and an improved end-user experience. So to that end, we have three areas that we really focus on as part of our service offerings. And these are the sort of key areas that we sort of call our core competencies, if you will. The consulting services focus a lot on the aforementioned business process and the challenges that result. Figuring out, knowing what the best practices are, taking almost a technology agnostic approach to this and putting together a true blueprint for a successful deployment. Looking at, what's entailed in laying out a true software licensing vision, right from, what the ultimate goal is. Is it streamlining internal processes? Is it increasing revenue? Is it improving customer experience? In many cases, it's all of the above. But quite often, we'll find that one particular aspect is driving the discussion. Our consulting services are aimed at just looking at the big picture and understanding what the best way to achieve success is. And in some cases, that doesn't involve technology at all. In some cases, it purely is improving and streamlining existing processes, and we find that the current systems that are in place are sufficient. Consulting services are built to be, vendor and technology agnostic in that sense, and lay out a true blueprint for a successful licensing initiative. Obviously, if there are technology solutions that need to be put in place, they are actual product as well as services that need to be implemented. We have architecture and design competencies that sort of marry the two. We take both our business process expertise as well as understanding our product, understanding internal systems, and figure out what the best way to put these together is, and laying out an architecture and design that the customer can sort of digest and then make some decisions around how they want to move forward. At this point, mind you, companies are still very much open to a build versus buy decision. Both the consulting and the architecture and design services are designed to present a blueprint for success that involves business processes as well as the right technology that would fit. In case there are technology or product that does assist, we'll make recommendations, lay out components that either fit out of the box or components that need to be customized, and then present to the customer a true sort of working document that they can take and make some decisions based on. If there are actual product integration and other areas that need to be implemented, there's a set of implementation services that really consist of a strong group of developers that can take existing product, extend it, personalize it, integrate it, provide the right knowledge transfer, everything required to ensure that the technology fits in, cater to the right business unit, does meet all the needs, all the gaps are addressed, basically everything that you would expect from a technical implementation services team. The three of these sort of work in unison allow us to really execute on our service offerings with that top-down approach that we just talked about. So at a high level, we really see three areas that we end up focusing on with our customers. Now, this is a bit of a generalization, but when we start talking software monetization, the bulk of the requirements focus on one of these three buckets, and they all sort of need to come together to ultimately execute on the vision. In the case of licensing, customers are really looking for scalable solutions that just increase their ability to be nimble with their software, provide modular approaches, whether it's having a tiered software structure, whether it's enabling various features or monetizing various features in the software. Could be related to increasing the business intelligence that's available in their software. There's a number of things that, including licensing into your products and into your various product modules, software modules, can assist with. Often that drives the discussion. And if you look at this business, maybe going back, several years, this area of licensing was far more focused on the enforcement and preventing, misuse. A lot of anti-piracy focus. That's shifted a lot towards just being able to maintain and execute on licensed contracts, as well as to be able to enable new business models, usage-based licensing, being able to ensure a consistent licensing experience, whether the software is delivered via hardware in a virtual environment or in the cloud. There certainly are pricing and business models that can cut across all three, and the best way to enable that sort of seamless user experience is by having similar or consistent licensing terms regardless of delivery model. All of that obviously ties into having an efficient operational mechanism in place that allows the easy delivery of licenses. More often than not, it's automation that customers focus on. But in many cases, it's just having a consistent and integrated system that allows these licenses to coexist with existing back office systems, so that CRM, ERP, and entitlement management systems are all sort of integrated and working fairly cohesively. And then, of course, the third and often most important part of this is customer satisfaction. It's a bit of a generalization, but ultimately, we found is the amount of momentum that a licensing initiative has and its long-term success really comes down to the customer experience. It's been historically a poor implementation will manifest itself in a poor customer experience, and ultimately even something that was built correctly and technically was sound, if certain aspects of the customer experience are overlooked, the repercussions are quite dramatic. So focusing on how licensing can actually improve customer satisfaction, how you can improve visibility into what customers are actually using. The conversations are really shifting from making customers just tolerate licensing to really turning licensing into an advantage for customers. We see this particularly in the cloud, where usage-based licensing and user-based licensing is much more the norm. Customers want to know exactly how much of a software they're using. They buy based on that paradigm, so they want visibility into what their usage is. And being able to focus on that aspect of licensing allows our customers to shift the conversation in terms of customer satisfaction, and that's something that we're seeing more increasingly. So having said all that, I'll jump into actually what we actually do before I go into the actual customer stories. Wanted to just touch upon a little bit on what a common project framework looks like for us. Even though actual deals vary in complexity, this gives you sort of an idea of the stages a customer goes through when they engage with us, all the way from design to delivery and the development in between. All of our service offerings are designed to assist our customers right from the conceptual stage to when they go live and beyond. But we start off engaging right at the conceptual and the strategy development phase. This often starts happening before we even have any determination of what the right product fit is, which products need to fit in. It's understanding what the overall vision is, developing a strategy in unison with our customers, focusing on what needs to be prioritized, what a schedule looks like, what timelines would look like before we even step into technical design. At that point, after we developed a strategy that we all agree on, the focus is more on the technical design, and that's where we start identifying what pieces need to fit in to actually, roll out a successful deployment. At that point, we start to identify the deliverables beyond products that need to exist. Oftentimes, in order to actually fit this technology into an end-user environment, you need pieces that result in not a customized, but a personalized solution that extends our products. You're still using off-the-shelf products, but the right glue is applied, if you will, to make sure that it fits in the right places. I have more on the specific packages a little later on in this session, but we sort of identify all the deliverables that need to exist in order to fit that strategy and that technical design. During the development phase, the primary areas that we focus on are how licensing actually gets integrated into our customer systems, which products need which types of licensing, what's driving the license conversation. Is it business intelligence? Is it feature-based licensing? Is it implementing a specific license model? How you actually implement the various tools that we have really depends on what the business drivers are. And then there's configuration of our entitlement management system to ensure that once you have a licensing vision, you can easily execute on it and deliver on all of the licenses, manage them, as well as integrate into your back office so that all of those systems sort of work together. You'll see back office integration is a key part of how most of our customers view and execute on their licensing initiatives. And then during the delivery phase, like I mentioned before, licensing certainly doesn't end once you've got the integration all sort of sorted out. At that point, you've just got a theoretical plan in place. The next step we do is help identify and execute on a pilot program. Start working through all of the business units that aren't necessarily involved in the technical integration, but are impacted by licensing. There's the IT folks, there's the operational and fulfillment people, there's customer service that needs to field calls related to licensing. So a pilot program allows us to go in there and do the right kind of knowledge transfer, work and help identify pilot programs. You'd be involved ourselves heavily in that and provide specific go-live packages that allow SafeNet to really be really tightly coupled with that initial rollout, ensuring that any and all items that we identified in that initial sort of strategy are being executed on. Anything that needs to go back and needs to be tweaked and gets adjusted during that pilot program. I'll talk a little bit about the blueprints that we create, the design, and as well as in some cases that involves technical architecture as well. In some cases it doesn't. I just wanted to give you an idea of what a typical strategy and design session looks like. Now, the main objective is to have a discussion with our customer on the best practices and for us to assess the current licensing landscape. This often happens with an on-site session. There are cases where this could happen remotely as well, but typically we lead a workshop with the core project team. Our customer pulls in members from various functioning work groups that are involved in the licensing project. We'll help identify that as well. But we conduct an assessment, and really this is the part where we gather all the requirements to get a really good understanding of what the ultimate vision of our customer is, what they'd like to see as a result of this project, as well as bring our ideas to the table as well. This is an area where obviously we've got years and years of experience, so we're able to take some general concepts and then help our customers put together a detailed kind of vision across what needs to be focused on, what should be prioritized, and realistic timetables around what this might look like in terms of timelines and in terms of an actual project plan. The deliverable of this session is a high-level licensing strategy that we then spend a few weeks. Typical time periods that we see range from 1 to 3 weeks in terms of being able to take all the data that we get in our workshops and put together a pretty detailed blueprint. And in that, we identify the priorities, define some guiding principles. We list out all the use cases. The result is a very comprehensive blueprint that allows our customers to take that and start, doing some assessments around, what the right approach is, what the right timeline should be, maybe even identifying what the right pilot project should be, or what the right, pilot software, or who should actually engage in moving forward with this. So the idea here is really to center on best practices, and this is where, as I mentioned, we tend to take a vendor-agnostic approach in the sense that this blueprint isn't centered around necessarily product dependencies. It's really focused on, bringing our expertise in this field to show what a successful project plan might look like. Obviously, where product applies, you'll see, references to SafeNet product to solve certain problems. But ultimately, this is something that happens independently, and we have many customers that engage in strategy and design architecture, just even knowing that an actual program is over a year away, whether it's for budgeting purposes, whether it's for scoping purposes. The strategy and design session is really there to help sort of put together a true working blueprint. The other area that often follows on then is the actual implementation services. And this follows a much more traditional development of a statement of work. This is where we identify the product mix, identify the integration points, create some pretty detailed technical blueprints that we work together with the customer on, agree on acceptance criteria. This is your sort of classic development service where you'll get a very detailed statement of work that identifies all the modules that are being built to support SafeNet product, and were identified during that strategy and development session. The idea here being that the strategy session identified, what a licensing blueprint might look like. This session now focuses in on the pieces that need to be built to actually, execute on that. Now, timelines on this vary depending on the complexity and depending on the scope of what the project looks like. So there is really no sort of, timeline, especially one can say, yeah, we've had implementation services that are, as short as 3 to 4 weeks, and ones that go on from 6 to 12 months, depending on the extent of the work, the level of integration, and what the customer requirements and timelines look like. But ultimately, the idea here is to identify all of these in a partnership mode with our customers, and then create a pretty detailed project plan. We have named resources that we assign to this, and these resources then get assigned to work directly with the customer in the development of modules identified, as well as the delivery and all of the knowledge transfer, et cetera, that needs to happen. So I guess the best way to really highlight some of our services is to jump right into some customer success stories. During this session, I'll go over what some of our customers, what their vision was, what their use cases were, where we were able to, what services did apply in the approach that we kind of took with them, beyond just handing them products and having them sort of figure it out for themselves. First off is Opsview, a global company based in the UK, 20,000 plus customers worldwide. They sell enterprise systems management. And their basic need was to go to market with a tiered product packaging structure. They wanted to have a bronze edition, silver edition, gold edition, and they wanted to manage that in a way that customers would only be able to, be entitled to what they purchased. They didn't want to have to rely on an honor system, even though that was what was in place. They wanted to allow licensing to give them business intelligence into which customers were on what software package. And they also wanted to automate the delivery of these licenses so that the customer experience of buying a certain product package and then upgrading to another one was relatively seamless. So the first thing they did was they engaged in a strategy and design service. This part was really critical to assess successful deployment. I've obviously talked quite a bit in this session about our consulting services and our strategy design services and the top-down approach that we take. But It really allowed OpsView to present SafeNet with its vision behind this project. The final solution you'll see will show safety technology in the back office and embedded into OpsView's product. But without understanding the overall vision of what they had in mind, there could have been a number of paths that OpsView could have taken. And allowing us to sit there and spend some time working on their vision, working on the strategy development session, in unison with OpsView. That blueprint allowed us to prioritize the requirements and lay out a timeline and an actual blueprint for OpsView that they were able to successfully engage on. Beyond creating just this, a project plan, we also determined the best path for OpsView to be successful. So we noticed, we were made aware that they had a very sort of integrated and successful Salesforce.com rollout. It's something that a lot of their sales and fulfillment people use, and we were able to identify that being able to continue to use that would be the best path to success. So again, while there was a number of ways for them to enable the management of their entitlements, we identified a way that would be the most seamless for OpsView, and I'll touch on that in a moment here. So the first part was ensuring that OpsView did have what they needed to go to market with that tiered product packaging structure. OpsView builds and delivers a single product image regardless of what the customer purchases, and they wanted to be able to use SafeNet's licensing technology to be able to turn those features on and off. Each option, as you'll see here, has various features that get enabled, and OpsView's product now was built with that business intelligence to be able to read a SafeNet license and then enable appropriate features. This was relatively straightforward. Like I said, a lot of our customers understand and know licensing, and the part that we really focused on here is making sure that they knew which of features in our licensing technology, Sentinel RMS, they were able to use, the easiest way to enable various licensing, and then making sure that we had all of those features appropriately plugged into their back office. And that's where the Salesforce integration comes in. So they engaged with us on our back office integration service. We were able to create a connector between our entitlement management system, which is EMS, and their Salesforce.com deployment. Now, we do this very often, but in each case, the workflows really depend on what the customer's wants and needs are. In this case, while EMS manages all the entitlements, delivers the licenses, and allows OpsView to implement its tiered product structure, internally at OpsView, the front end remains Salesforce.com. This is far less intrusive. It reduced the learning curve and allowed OpsView to significantly accelerate its time to market for its licensing solution. One of the things that they really pride themselves on is how quickly they were able to take this to market. And a big part of that was the ability for them to not have to create a new system or disrupt their existing workflows. We were able to identify how to integrate and then go ahead and integrate EMS for them, provide a connector that had the right interfaces that allowed them to just continue to process their orders through Salesforce. Behind the scenes, EMS creates the entitlement, sends an email to the contact. There's a download link and a really easy way for customers now to download the appropriate license. For the customer, it's seamless. Internally at OpsView, short of the core group that is working on licensing, the order processing portion is fairly seamless, but the entire licensing process has changed for them, and it's allowed them to have, significantly more insight into what packages their customers are using, as well as enforce these license terms rather than have to continue to rely on an honor system. The next example is similar in the services that were used and in a way similar in the technology that applied, but the overall motivation was different. In this case, it was the InfoPrint department of RICO, and what they really wanted was automation. They wanted to automate the delivery of licenses, and that was, they wanted to eliminate the manual processes that were in place, and they wanted to enable customer self-service. This was only possible by fully sort of automating all aspects of the licensing: retrieval, return, renewal, and purchasing of new licenses. So it was really automation, customer fulfillment that drove the conversation with them. Again, you'll see the familiar theme of engaging with SafeNet consultants over here. But it was key to planning out exactly how we wanted to roll this out and what areas needed to be focused on. Before beginning any of the integration work, we took some time understanding what the customer experience needed to look like, what a customer would go through, and what automation really meant for InfoPrint. Ultimately, it was determined that we needed to implement and host Sentinel EMS in their back office for automated license delivery to cut down the impact on IT. We wanted it hosted, which is an offering that we were able to provide. And also they wanted everything integrated and connected into Oracle, because that's where their orders go to. So again, we identified the areas that were related to entitlements, what orders are associated with specific entitlements so that we can create an appropriate Oracle connector and tie it into InfoPrint systems. Software activation took place. In this case, while we allow customers to log into a portal and download licenses, they also wanted direct license self-service from within their products. So we were able to identify and assist with the creation and integration of EMS services that allow InfoPrint's products to phone home, identify themselves, retrieve a license, download and install a license, and implement the methodology for renewals as well as for transfers. A little bit of an eye chart that gives you it's sort of a snapshot into what a workflow looks like with customer orders going through the web stores or directly from sales. All orders are processed from Oracle, and Oracle passes the order details then into EMS that's hosted for them in the cloud. There's a new entitlement that's created. Again, an email gets sent to the customer with their activation code, with their entitlement details. That then gets shipped down into the product. When the customer installs the product, there's an activation function that they can enable that we help design for them. Once those activation details are entered, the product calls home, downloads the appropriate set of licenses, and features that have been purchased are enabled. The most important part here is that the connection to Oracle was created and integrated before the rollout, as well as all aspects related to that automation were tested out and put in place before anything was rolled out. Now, had we not conducted in a strategy development service, the focus might have been just on making sure that the back office system works with Oracle, but understanding that this is primarily driven by the need for customers to have a seamless experience, we're really focused on the connection between the product to the back office to be able to just seamlessly download and retrieve and install licenses. We knew that integrating into Oracle is something that also needed to be done, but if we emphasize that part of it, it might come at the cost of the customer experience, and this entire project has really been driven by a desire to improve customer experience. Again, engaging in a strategy development session allowed us to understand what areas needed to be focused on, what areas needed to be prioritized, and when we put together a blueprint, the phased approach identified that set of priorities. The last example I have here is one that we see quite often, and it's no surprise. I mean, licensing is something that often ends up being either homegrown or third party, but companies tend to have multiple business units. They tend to grow both organically and via acquisition, and it's very, very common to see multiple key generators servicing either different versions or different business units within software. So in the back office, there's somebody there that's tasked with having to host and manage and execute on multiple license generators. Ends up being results in a few key people that have to have a lot of just expertise in just managing and making sure that the right licenses are being sent based on the right order. It can be an operational nightmare, and it's no surprise that wanting to unify licensing is a big driver for a lot of companies, even though practically speaking, most of them understand that it's pretty difficult and not realistic to just assume that you can get down to just having one licensing technology. Even as a provider of third-party solutions, we recognize that to expect a customer just to have one licensing technology across every single product line, especially in larger organizations, is simply not practical. We've designed our solutions to be able to manage and maintain multiple licensing technologies. The LifeCycle service, I've got a little more detail on the specific offerings we have, but it's really a service that's designed around identifying what specific, gaps, if you will, exist in, in the customer's use case versus what out-of-the-box product can service, if you will. And this is very common in the world of licensing because there really isn't a one-size-fits-all. Even the same set of licensing technologies is implemented in so many different ways depending on the use cases and the business needs that it's very, very common for customers to want to extend and adapt that technology to fit their needs. So the LifeCycle service is designed to extend our out-of-the-box products to meet very specific use cases and business needs for our customers. In this case, we implemented our technology in their back office to manage their licenses, and then we started to migrate all of the license generators into our back office so that even though there's still distinct key generators that work there, all of that complexity is abstracted from the customer. So what Ericsson's interfacing with is one unified sort of back office, one system to deliver entitlements, but under the hood, the appropriate entitlement will call the right key generator, will generate the correct keys. The actual bits and bytes get shielded both from the operational users within Ericsson as well as from their customers. And that's really the goal behind this, was to make sure that we provided a system that allowed them to embark on the journey to reduce that number from 20 to something more manageable. But in the meanwhile, it allowed them to, at least for the folks that don't deal with licensing on a day-to-day basis, just be shielded from that complexity and have an abstracted layer that sits above all of this. So with that, I wanted to touch upon, the various packages that we actually do offer. This is a snapshot of the more popular packages and probably summarizes about 90% of the actual packages that customers engage with us on. Strategy and development and architecture design, I've spent quite a bit of time on. We definitely see a very high correlation between customers that engage in this and successful long-term rollouts. As I've mentioned, it involves an analysis of customer requirements, a technology-agnostic approach, and a top-down view that sort of marries business process with technical requirements. I didn't spend too much time on Jumpstart, but it's sort of almost rolled into one of these offerings. Quite often, for simpler needs or for customers that don't engage in any of these other packages, they've got a good sense of what they need in terms of technology. In many cases, they know what they need to do. They simply need product. Jumpstart is really designed to assist customers with minimizing their learning curve. It allows us to go install our products, configure them for our customers, do the right knowledge transfer to all of the appropriate stakeholders, and make sure that we minimize the time required to just understand and get themselves comfortable with safety technology. The back office integration is probably one of the single most deployed services we have. Anybody that wants to engage in any sort of licensing system needs it integrated with their back office systems. That means different things to different organizations. Some are ERP heavy, some require integration with CRM. There's other homegrown systems as well, or customer management systems. There's renewals and contract management systems. Sometimes you have multiple ERPs. There's a host of things that get involved in back office integration. Fortunately, most of these technologies now are able to talk to each other via web services, and we're able to go in there. We understand all of these systems. We've seen it all when it comes to back office integration, and so we take our entitlement management system and build the appropriate connectors to make sure that it's able to speak to all of the other systems, so that entitlement management is part of the organization's operational workflow and not a system that's just sitting in isolation. talk a little bit about Sentinel, but again, this is the component that allows us to create very specific modules that allow our products to work better in customer environments. This often involves just building modules completely from scratch that allow customers to extract more value out of the products. And then we also offer a security audit service. As I mentioned, beyond just business enablement and licensing, for a number of our customers, security is still a concern. In certain markets more than others, piracy is still a very viable concern. And there's a host of safety products that are focused specifically on ensuring the best level of security in terms of reverse engineering, IP protection, anti-piracy. We have a service that can analyze a customer's implementation, provide recommendations and best practices on how to improve a company's security posture when it comes to actually IP protection and anti-piracy. So in summary, really the way we focus and view our services are, from concept to delivery and beyond, making sure that, we execute, across, from a business process and a technology vision. We work across multiple levels with management teams, operation teams, and every other team that we know needs to be involved in licensing. This isn't a technology that impacts just one department. It really does cut across all departments, and we have experts that can identify the use cases for each single group, and that's really what we focus on when we start to engage with our customers. Certainly, we understand that licensing isn't something that goes away, and so it very much is a partnership approach. You'll see our service offerings are focused first. You'll have a certain set of expertise that applies at the initial design areas. There's other folks that specialize in implementation, and then we've got people that are dedicated towards go live and ongoing support. And understanding that licensing is an ongoing business process for our customers, we've built a team that's prepared to support our customers throughout the life cycle of their software. And with that, I'll open it up to questions. I think we still got a good amount of time left, so and I'll turn it back over to Marcy.
Well, I think your presentation was really good. I think those case studies were awesome. I mean, just to understand that you can take 20 separate databases and consolidate them into one, licensing generation, and the amount of, improvement in just efficiencies and everything that's linked to Ericsson is actually quite exciting. So let's see. I'm going to see if we have any questions coming in from our social media talkers or joiners. And I have one that's come in right now. That is, I guess is related to my Sentinel package that you just talked about. And it says, does using a My Sentinel package mean I end up with custom versions of the SafeNet product?
Yeah, that's actually something that comes up quite a bit with our customers, and the answer is a very emphatic no. I think that's something that's very clear, is engaging in services, especially when one thinks about traditional services groups, especially in IT systems. You really think about installation, configuration, those sort of things. However, in this case, there often is services that we engage in where we build specific pieces of code that sit in a customer's environment to help make our products function better according to their needs. Those things are built separately. We have support contracts and such that we work out directly with our customers around those specific modules. And while they extend our products, they don't customize our products, so that engaging in a service like this doesn't impact a customer's maintenance, a customer's warranty, or the ability for a customer to take advantage down the road of upgrades and updates of safety product.
Okay. Let's see if we have any more questions. And so I want to remind our viewers that any time they can submit questions through their Ask Question, Submit a Question button on their screen, and I'll be glad to read it to you. Here's another question. What if I have a licensing system developed by us, in other words, not commercial? Okay, so it must be their own homegrown system. Can I still engage with SafeNet for any services?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one is most commonly seen with our strategy development and architecture design service. As I mentioned, it is meant to be technology agnostic. Oftentimes, customers have a homegrown system. There's a build versus buy discussion going on, and developing a comprehensive blueprint allows them to better make that decision. Obviously, selfishly, we like the buy decision, but it isn't always the most appropriate solution. There's a number of factors that weigh into that. So our approach is to look at what the customer's vision is, what options they have. Our recommendations will be centered around improving the business process, and it'll give recommendations that involve a combination of using what's already in place, pros and cons, as well as what can be put in place additionally to improve and execute upon their vision. So it could be some SafeNet product does apply, and additionally, the customer doesn't have to go all in. It could be that there's parts of SafeNet technology that does get implemented, or maybe it allows them to make some decisions down the road. But certainly engaging in some of these blueprints allows customers to improve on what's already in place without necessarily having to put any new technology in place.
So for example, if you don't mind, would you mind, maybe you did elaborate on the presentation, but the Ericsson databases were then some commercial and somewhere homegrown, or were they all internally designed?
Yeah, in this case, it was a combination. A lot of them were party. A number of them were actually various business units within. In a company that large, there were various unique implementations of technology that existed there. But again, each one of them was different, and these different business units had various implementations. But the fulfillment teams and the channel distribution is all doesn't really understand those nuances. So the idea was to build something that abstracts all of that and allows them to fulfill through one process, and then just integrate and manage with all of those various key generators.
And I imagine with a company like Ericsson, as big as it is, it's probably also through acquisitions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Let's see. Let's give folks another chance. So here, we're almost out of time. And see if you have any questions. So you talked about Salesforce.com and Oracle back office systems, and a question has come in asking whether there is integration with less popular back office systems. I'm not familiar enough to know the names to kind of give you some ideas, but I'm sure you do.
Absolutely. There's the more common ones we see are those sort of big names, if you will, but and most systems have some sort of web services means to integrate where we can go ahead and plug our system in. We haven't run into situations where we aren't able to take other systems and integrate them. And even when that doesn't exist, we can create components that'll talk to our entitlement management system. So the real focus of the back office integration services to figure out what systems within an organization need to interface with an entitlement management system, and then create those appropriate interfaces. So it's not limited to just, even for things like Salesforce, it's not limited to just having, an out-of-the-box connector. There's a number of different ways that customers might want Salesforce to interface with our entitlement management system. We publish all of our interfaces, so these are all things that customers can easily deploy and build themselves. But again, understanding entitlements, understanding all the workflows, this is our area of expertise. So we've generally found that we're able to reduce the time to market significantly when they engage with us.
Mm-hmm. And what's really interesting, and I can tell you that, I do a lot of webcasts and I said at the beginning, this was one of my favorite type of webcasts because of the specific case studies. But what's really obvious to me during the presentation is the real ROI in every single one of these case studies, the operational efficiencies and the, I guess the closing the loop to allow there to be significant growth in revenue by cutting down the cost of sales. So I really enjoyed this webcast, and I wanted to take a minute and if you could go to the next slide, Jan, because I don't think we have any more questions, and we're almost out of time. So I wanted to take a minute to encourage everyone to take a look at the recorded presentations from our licensing live event we just held in Cupertino, California. I know you were there, Jan. And the link is on the screen right now. And you'll see, for example, directly from the words from Rob May, from his own words, his presentation as head of delivery service, where he describes their journey to operational efficiency with the Salesforce Integration plan and double-digit revenue increases in the first quarter that they implemented the integration with Salesforce. I thought that was really impressive, and I think everyone on this webcast would love to hear him and watch his presentation and look at the slides that he presented. Additionally, we have some other recorded sessions from that event from Aspera, Varian Medical Labs, IDC, SD Times, and so I think it's a great resource. So please go to our licensinglive.com /event/licensinglive-US-2012. And feel free to view any of the presentations that are there. So, Jim, is there anything else from you?
No, I think if there's no more questions, that covers it all. I want to thank everybody for their time.
Yes, we both would like to thank everyone for attending this webcast. If there are no further questions, then we're going to conclude today's session. Again, our email addresses, marcyclapp@safenet-inc.com and jamkhan@safenet-inc.com in case you have any questions or you require any additional information. So this concludes today's session, and thank you so much for attending.